Hi, and welcome to a brand new year. I'm also in a brand new studio and I'm excited about this. I finally have a room dedicated to making music and YouTube videos, so you can expect a lot from me this year. The studio needs quite a bit of work. I have to finish the desk on the monitor side, mount some things on the wall to the left, and work on lighting. But I made a decent start and most of it is functional. Anyway, we're starting the year with a short video about something that made a huge impact on my sound design skills, and for some reason is a bit of an underused gem in synthesis. I'm talking about smooth random voltages. If you get value out of these videos, consider a like and subscribe. And have a look at my Patreon if you want to read more about my plans and support this video series. But now, let's dive right in. So first things first. When I say smooth random voltage, I mean a randomly generated voltage that gradually goes up and down over time. But let's start with the more common stepped sample and hold signal. This is a random signal created by taking a noise source and a clock. A noise source is basically a very fast random voltage, and when you use a sample and hold module to have the clock source hold the volume of the noise at a steady pace, you get the classic stepped random voltage. You can find this signal in many synths outside of the modular world. Very often though, synths don't offer the possibility to alter this basic stepped signal. And although I think you can have a lot of fun with a simple sample and hold signal, I think smooth random voltages have a lot more uses. To create these in a modular setup, you can take a stepped sample and hold signal and run it through a slew limiter. A slew limiter limits the time in which a voltage is allowed to in or decrease. This gives you the possibility to turn the immediate changes in voltages of the classic signal into a signal that slowly goes up and down to reach each new sampled level. In modular land, there are also a lot of single modules that can produce smooth random voltages on their own. Some examples are the Doopfer A118, Make Noise Wogglebug, and Mutable Instruments Marbles and Peaks. I like these voltages so much that I actually wonder why they didn't become a standard element in pretty much any synth. So why is this? What's its secret? Spoiler alert, that was the answer. To create subtle dynamics. You see, the human ear is trained to focus on subtle changes in sound. If we hear a static sound like a calm humming fridge or a soothing white noise for a longer time, the volume seems to go down. We get used to it and our brain filters it out. Or if a static sound is loud or harsh, it will just get irritating really fast and we want to get rid of it. If a sound is continuously changing, we experience it as more organic and natural. We find it more pleasant and interesting, and our mind keeps focused on it for a longer time. Smooth random voltages, when used subtly, can do exactly that. I still remember the first time when I used a random voltage on a filter when I had my first few modules. It was a game changer for me and it's still a go-to sound. Take a basic square wave for example. It's boring, then filter it a bit. Better, but boring. Add some reverb. Again, a bit better, but still boring. Then add a subtle random voltage to the filter. This is great. I can listen to this for a really long time. You can't do this with anything else than true random voltages. Looping envelopes or cross-modulating LFOs will quickly fall into looping patterns. A true random voltage will continuously add unexpected changes to your sound. So it's a very simple signal with a very simple concept. There's not much more to say here. So let's just have a look at a couple of patching ideas to help you get started patching up your random voltage. In the example you just listened to, we used a straightforward monophonic voice with an oscillator and a filter. Let's add a voltage controlled amplifier to finish it off. Then we send a smooth random voltage through an attenuator to the filter. The attenuator is key because although in some cases an extreme effect can be nice, most of the time an ever so slightly effect is enough. We don't want to create sounds that are impossible to control in a mix, we just want to add some light random texture. Other simple possibilities are sending a random voltage to the oscillator. This way you can create some controlled oscillator drifting. This can be especially nice if you use a mix of two oscillators in your patch and only send a random voltage to one of them. I also really enjoy just mixing two oscillators together. Tune one of them a fifth, seventh or octave above and then feed them into a wave folder. In this case, a subtle random voltage to one of the oscillators, or actually the wave folder, can have great results. Using noise and mixing it with an oscillator before going to a filter is also a common setup. You can then use the random voltage to the filter to have some noise come through sometimes. I find this needs a more open filter to work properly though, and if you go a bit deeper in your sounds, you often want the filter and noise amount to be separately controllable. So a variation on this is to use a VCA between the noise source and the mixer. Then send a random voltage to the VCA to control the amount of noise in the mix. Sometimes it even works better to just pass the oscillator through the filter first, then use a mixer afterwards to add a random amount of unfiltered noise to the mix. This works good when you use a short attack decay envelope with a VCA at the end of the patch to create a more short and bright, plucky percussive sound. Because although the amount of noise has some random to it, this way it's always bright and unfiltered. Sending a random voltage to a VCA is a great way to add some dynamics to a steady synth or drum sound. If you make your own heads with a noise source, a VCA and a voltage controllable envelope for example, you can have the random voltage add some dynamics to the volume. Or combine the tricks by melting that same voltage and control the decay of the envelope as well. If you invert the voltage to the VCA, you can create an inverted effect. This way, louder heads are short and softer heads are longer. Subtle smooth random voltages to effect modules like reverb amount or delay time can have a great effect as well. And as long as the random voltage is audible in the end result, it's worth experimenting with different setups. For example, use the random voltage to open a VCA that controls the amount of frequency modulation from one oscillator to another. Or send a random voltage to influence the speed of an LFO that in turn modulates a filter, wave folder or other parameter. You can expand the dynamics by sending one random voltage to multiple destinations. For example, take a random voltage to control the speed of an LFO as well as to the filter. This way, when the filter opens the sound, the LFO increases in speed, creating a very natural effect. With the peaks offering two random voltages that work at independent slower speeds, you can send each of them to a different parameter in a voice, like a wave folder and filter, to create more complex, slowly changing drony sounds. And you can create more complexity in random when you use a slower random voltage to open a VCA to control the amount of a faster random voltage influencing another parameter. For example, the amount of FM to an oscillator. Or send the outcome to a quantizer to create a fast random melody with a slowly changing maximum spread of notes. You can literally use random voltages on everything to add some interest. And the more you'll have of them, the more uses you'll find for them. With the Doopfer A118 and peaks, I have 3 random voltages. And in many of my patches, I use all 3 of them. And often making mults so I can use them on multiple destinations. I hope this has piqued your interest and gave you some starting points. If you'd like to support me in making more videos like this, smash that like and subscribe button. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching and see you next time.